Welcome to DYW Newsscape with me, your host Aidan, and today I'm joined by Mr. John Swinney, the Deputy First Minister of Scotland, to talk about how he got into his profession of politics. So, John Swinney, could you please tell the viewers your full job title?
I will, Aidan. Thanks very much for the chance to have a conversation about all these issues. My full job title is I'm the Deputy First Minister of Scotland and the Cabinet Secretary for Education and Skills. And in addition to that, I'm the member of the Scottish Parliament for Perthshire North.
So, what was your route plan from school into politics then?
I suppose it's a bit of a circuitous journey. I became involved in politics when I was at school. I joined my party, the SNP, when I was 15 in 1979. And I was always interested in politics and current affairs. So a lot of my schoolwork, my university degree was all about politics, history, and I was focusing on that as an academic journey. And all the time I was involved in politics as a volunteer. And I know that you've volunteered extensively, Aidan, in a lot of your activities. So I had a career outside of politics before I was elected to Parliament, and that was in the world of business. I worked in the financial services sector. I worked in an economic development consultancy. But throughout all that work in life, I was sustaining my voluntary interest in politics. And then eventually I was elected to Parliament in 1997. And I've been a member of Parliament ever since.
So, what was your favourite subject at school then?
Well, it was a bit of a tussle between English, history, and modern studies. Those were the things that really captured my attention, and they substantiated my political interest and my interest in society. I suppose my professional interest also was in finance. I was the finance minister for 9 years, so I was always interested in maths and economics as well at school.
So did you have any jobs before you went into politics then?
Yeah, I worked for about 11 years in the private sector before I went into politics. First of all, for an economic and business development consultancy. And we used to look at companies that were maybe in a bit of difficulty and would work out how they could strengthen their performance. And then I also worked for 5 years for a major insurance company, Scottish Amicable, immediately before I was elected to the House of Commons. And I think it's certainly from my point of view, I benefited enormously from the fact that I had external activities and work in the world of business before I entered Parliament full time. And I think it's important to have that life experience behind you to strengthen what you can do in politics.
So would you say, is there any skills and qualities that you learned from your previous job that you have taken into your current job you've got just now?
Yeah, I think in terms of my education and my previous work, a lot of the research skills that I had were really important in helping me to be able to marshal information and handle information that would enable me to be able to act as a politician. So that's an important point. I think secondly, the ability to communicate. You can't be a politician if you can't communicate. So explaining my position, setting out my arguments, drawing on material is really critical in that process. And I suppose thirdly, the ability to understand how you can make things happen is crucial as a politician.
So if a young person asked you how to get into politics, what would you suggest?
The first thing is that I would encourage young people to be politically active. And that's about, not necessarily about joining a political party, although that's important, but they could also be politically active by being involved in a campaign on a particular issue. And some of these issues can be local issues to a school or to a local community. So there's a whole variety of different ways in which that activity can be taken forward. And I would encourage young people to engage in such activities.
So how would you suggest a young people keep developing their political skills while in this current lockdown?
I think the crucial thing, and this is the advantage that I think a lot of young people have today, and that's why the way the lockdown and around COVID has affected us. We've had an ability, most of us, not all of us, but most of us, to use digital technology to keep in touch with wider society and with other people. And if the pandemic had happened, even 5-10 years ago, we wouldn't have been as strongly equipped with digital technology as we are now. It's not been perfect, and there have been some examples where people have not had that digital connectivity. But I think in the whole, we've strengthened that capacity and capability, and I think that provides a platform for young people to engage more widely with society and to develop their political skills through the medium of digital technology.
Politicians have had to work throughout the lockdown. How have you coped working in a building during lockdown with other people?
It's been a bit of a mixture for me. I spent a lot of time at the beginning of lockdown working from home. My own family circumstances, my wife was shielding, and my son was at home, so we tended to stay pretty close to home, and my parliamentary colleagues were very good at making it practical and possible for me to do that, and I dialed into Parliament remotely, and I answered questions from my house or took part in debates from my house. So for a large part of lockdown, I didn't actually come into a building to try to protect my family situation. Obviously, since then, I've begun to come in and out of buildings, and I think what I would say is just in all circumstances, I've tried to exercise the greatest of care. Obviously, observing physical distancing, wearing a face covering, making sure my hands are sanitised at all times. So just following those rudimentary rules and trying to avoid crowded places. So it's possible to do that, but you've got to be really disciplined about your adherence to the rules.
So have you been reading any books during this lockdown that's helped you develop your skills or cope throughout it?
Well, I've read a number of books during lockdown. Probably the greatest and the most seminal piece that I've read is the book by Douglas Stewart, Shuggie Bain, which is a new novel written by a Scot who lives in New York, and it's a searing analysis of life in Glasgow in the 1980s in the midst of poverty and deprivation, and it's a painful read, a really painful, challenging read, but it's also an inspiring read about human resilience and about the need for us all to overcome the challenges that we face in life. And it was I would recommend it as a really incredible piece of work.
What age would you say that book's for then?
Well, I'd say it's for adults. So it's you would have to. I think it's suitable for people over the age of 18. It's quite it's a tough book, tough and challenging book, but a really great read.
Have you had time to listen to any music or films that has helped you develop your skills or cope throughout this lockdown?
One of the things that I do to essentially support my own well-being is I run pretty frequently. So most mornings in lockdown I ran, and over the course of a week I would run a marathon each week. And obviously I was listening to music while I was running, and my kind of playlist has got a whole collection of different songs on that. Some by Amy MacDonald, some by Adele, some by Emily Sandé, and various others. So I listen to that. I've got a kind of bit of a standard playlist that I listen to when I'm running. It tells me whether I'm going fast enough or I'm going too slow on that particular day, as to whether I'm hearing a song at a particular stage in my route. So it's quite a good discipline, but it's also, it combines good exercise out in the open air, in the countryside, listening to music early in the morning when the day is fresh. So I normally find that gets me off to a good start.
Yes. With so many young people worried about their future pathway, could you give a few words to reassure them, please?
I think what's important for young people, I appreciate this is a really tough time for young people. I think it's probably the hardest. Young people face the hardest of times just now. So it's important that young people try to be patient and careful. It's a long time since I was a young person, but I know how much of a hurry we all are to get on in life. And I suppose I would just encourage just to be patient, take it canny. The other thing I'd say is that the government is putting a lot of effort into making sure there are good opportunities available for young people. The Young Person's Guarantee is an assurance to every young person that over a 2-year period they will have a good training or employment or volunteering option available to all young people. And the foundation apprenticeships that are in place are now really good, substantive opportunities that enable young people to develop their own pathways. And I would recommend them to any young person who's thinking about what's the right thing to do going forward.
Yes, I'm. If you didn't know, I'm doing a foundation apprenticeship just now.
Yeah. Well, the foundation apprenticeship is a superb approach. I think it combines workplace skills for a study. I think it suits young people, and it's for employers. It provides them with access to fabulous and creative young people. So I can't speak highly enough about the foundation apprenticeship approach.
With foundation apprenticeships, how many different topics can you pick from for the foundation apprenticeships if anyone was thinking of going into one?
Well, there's a very wide range of opportunities available, and it'll vary in different parts of the country. But part of what I'm keen to make sure is that we've got that broad range of opportunities available, and that young people have the chance to select those options and to be able to pursue them. And with the pandemic, there's been a disruption to the labour market. We've got to make sure that throughout all of this, young people still have good opportunities to go to in due course.
And is there anything else you've been doing to help you cope through the lockdown, like watching a film or something you do with your family?
Yeah, well, we stick pretty closely together. And as I said, my wife has been shielding, so she's been pretty much in and around the house for the whole of the last year. My son's 10 and he's been off and on to school and is close to home. So we tend to spend our time, we're lucky to have a garden. My son and I can kick a football about or throw a rugby ball around, and we stick pretty close to home and enjoy the outside. And the greatest amount of fresh air we can get, the better for how we feel about things.
Well, I have really enjoyed our time today, and I am very sad to see it end. But Mr. John Swinney, I would like to thank you ever so much for giving up your time to talk to the young people about how to get into your sector of work, which is politics. You've been watching DYW Newsscape on the DYW Moray YouTube channel with your host, Aidan. Stay safe. Remember, hands, face, space, or facts if you live in Scotland like me and Mr. Swinney, and we will all get through this together. Thank you.